My name is Anna, and I've been married to James for 7 years. We have 2 children, a nice house in a quiet neighborhood, and to anyone on the outside, we look like the perfect family. But inside, I felt like something was missing. Our life had become routine, predictable. The kind of routine that drags you down over time, and you don't even realize how far apart you've drifted until it's too late. James, my husband, was always busy with work. He's a lawyer, so long hours and constant stress were his daily companions. He was a good man. Dependable, responsible, loving in his own way. But there was no fire anymore. No spark between us. Our relationship, especially physically, had become a shadow of what it used to be. I felt invisible to him, like I was just a part of the background in his life. Then, a few months ago, everything changed. I met Michael. He was new at the office, a charming, confident guy. He was about 5 years younger than me, but there was something about him that made me feel alive. We started talking more during lunch breaks, chatting about work and then about everything else. He had that way of making you feel seen, really heard. And I hadn't felt that way in so long. It wasn't long before I started looking forward to our chats. He'd make me laugh, he'd smile at me in a way that made me feel like I was the only one in the room. It wasn't like he was overly flirty. At least, I didn't think he was at first. He was just different. I was married, of course. I loved James, but the truth was, I didn't feel like James noticed me the way Michael did. Michael made me feel important. One day, Michael asked if I wanted to grab a coffee after work. I hesitated at first. But then I thought, why not? It's just coffee? That was how it started. A harmless coffee. We talked for hours. It felt like I was talking to someone who really understood me. Not someone who was distracted or half listening while they checked their phone. We shared a lot, laughed, and by the end of the night, I didn't want it to end. The next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about him. I found myself smiling when I thought of our conversations, replaying his voice in my head. It was ridiculous. I was married, after all. But somehow, the thought of him kept creeping in. It wasn't that I was unhappy with James. It was just that I hadn't felt this alive in years. Michael started texting me, and I found myself looking forward to those messages. He'd send me little jokes, or just check in. He was thoughtful, attentive. The more he reached out, the more I looked forward to his texts. It wasn't long before he started calling me during the evenings when I was alone at home. I could feel myself getting drawn to him, in a way I didn't fully understand, but he was the first person to make me feel wanted in a long time. I told myself it was harmless. Just a little attention. I was just enjoying the feeling of being noticed. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It was a small thing at first, the way he made me feel. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that he was filling a void in my life, the kind of void I hadn't even realized was there. I remember one evening, after James had fallen asleep, Michael texted me. "I'd love to see you again. How about dinner this weekend?" My heart skipped a beat. I felt a mixture of excitement and guilt. I didn't want to hurt James, but the idea of seeing Michael again, really seeing him, made my pulse race. I thought about it for a few minutes, trying to convince myself it wasn't a big deal. But then I gave in. I agreed to meet him. When Saturday came, I was nervous. The entire time I was getting ready, I kept thinking about what I was doing. This wasn't just some innocent dinner. It was something more, but I didn't want to admit it. I wanted to feel good about myself again, and Michael was the only one who made me feel that way. We met at a small Italian restaurant. It wasn't fancy, but it was intimate. We had a long dinner, talked about everything under the sun, and before I knew it, the night had flown by. There was a moment, as we stood outside, waiting for our rides, where I felt this tension. The air between us seemed to crackle. He leaned in, just a little, and whispered, "You look beautiful tonight." I felt myself blush. The words, simple as they were, made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. I stepped back, suddenly unsure of what I was doing. But before I could say anything, Michael smiled, a little cocky, a little charming. "You know, I've been wanting to do this for a while," he said, and then his lips were on mine. I froze for a second. And then I kissed him back. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about James or the kids or the life I had built. I wasn't thinking about anything but the fact that I was finally being kissed the way I wanted to be kissed. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong. But for the first time in years, I felt alive. We pulled away after a few seconds, both a little breathless. I didn't know what to say. The guilt was there, but so was the rush of excitement. I could feel myself being drawn into something I didn't know how to stop. This was just a kiss, I told myself. I can stop now. I can still walk away. But a part of me didn't want to. Not yet. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about Michael. It was a mixture of guilt and excitement. A heady combination that left me on edge. I told myself it was just a kiss, but deep down I knew it was more than that. I had crossed a line, and I wasn't sure where the boundaries were anymore. The next few days were a blur. I was distant with James, pretending everything was normal. But I wasn't the same. I felt like I was living a double life, and the weight of that secret was starting to feel heavy. Michael continued to text me, each message more personal than the last. He would ask how my day went, tell me how much he was thinking about me. Sometimes he'd send a simple, "Good morning," with a heart emoji. I hated myself for feeling this rush when I saw his name pop up on my phone, but at the same time, I couldn't help myself. Then, one evening, Michael suggested we meet again. I hesitated, but I agreed. This time, we decided to go to a more secluded spot, a little boutique hotel just outside the city. I was nervous as I drove there, my heart pounding. The entire way, I kept wondering what I was doing, what I had become. I had been married to James for 7 years, but here I was, heading to a hotel with another man. I felt ashamed, but I couldn't stop. I had to see Michael again. When I arrived, Michael was waiting for me outside, and his smile made my heart skip. He looked so confident, so certain, while I felt like I was spiraling into something I didn't fully understand. We walked into the hotel, and everything felt like a blur. The dim lighting, the soft music playing in the background, and the way he touched my arm as we walked toward the elevator made my breath hitch. The elevator ride up felt like it took forever. But when we reached the room, he turned to me, his eyes dark with anticipation. "Are you sure you want this?" he asked quietly, his voice low and full of meaning. His words sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to say no. I wanted to stop. But I didn't. I nodded, and before I could say anything else, Michael kissed me again, this time harder, more urgent. The kiss deepened quickly, and I felt his hands begin to roam over me, pulling me closer, as if we had both been waiting for this moment. I could taste the excitement on his lips, and despite the nagging voice in my head telling me to stop, I gave in. For the next few hours, I was lost in him. Every touch, every kiss seemed to erase the guilt, at least for a while. It felt like I was someone else, someone I didn't recognize. The world outside didn't exist. It was just Michael and me, and in that moment, I convinced myself that nothing else mattered. But then, as we lay there together, Michael said something that would change everything. He looked at me with a smirk, his voice smooth. "I have an idea. Something that will make this all the more exciting." I raised an eyebrow, still trying to catch my breath. "What do you mean?" Michael's grin grew wider, and he leaned in closer. "Why don't you call James?" he said, almost teasingly. While we're doing this, let him hear what he's missing." I froze. For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. "What?" I whispered, unsure if I was hearing him right. "Call him. Tell him what you're doing. Let him know you're with me. Make him jealous. Make him realize what he's lost." I stared at Michael, trying to process his words. It seemed so reckless, so wrong. But then, I thought about how James had stopped paying attention to me. He didn't look at me the way he used to, didn't make me feel desirable anymore. And in that moment, it seemed like an idea that would give me some control. Some power. Michael seemed to sense my hesitation. "Come on, Anna. It'll be fun. Trust me, it'll make everything more thrilling. You'll get to see his reaction. You'll see how much he's taking you for granted." His words were persuasive. I was already so caught up in the moment, so consumed by everything that was happening between us. The thought of calling James, of making him feel the sting of knowing I was with another man, filled me with a sense of power I hadn't felt in years. It was dangerous, yes, but it was also intoxicating. I pulled out my phone and, with trembling fingers, I dialed James's number. My heart was racing as the phone rang. What was I doing? What would he say? But I couldn't stop. The phone picked up. I heard James's voice on the other end, sleepy and confused. "Anna, is everything okay?" I couldn't believe how calm I sounded as I said, "Hey, James. I just wanted to tell you something. I'm with someone right now. Someone who actually appreciates me." I heard him pause on the other end. His voice became harder. "What the hell are you talking about, Anna?" Michael's hand was on my thigh, and I could feel the heat of his body next to mine. I closed my eyes, letting the moment consume me. I whispered into the phone, "I'm with Michael. I don't think you even realize what's happening here, do you?" "But I do. I feel alive, and you don't even see me anymore." I heard the silence on the other end. Then, in a cold, controlled voice, James replied, "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I don't have time for this." The words hit me hard. I didn't expect him to react like that. I thought he would beg maybe, or even get angry. But no, he was calm. Too calm. I ended the call, feeling a rush of both satisfaction and guilt. I had just done something unforgivable. But in that moment, it felt like I was in control of something for the first time in years. Michael smiled at me, a satisfied grin that made my heart race. "See, that was fun, wasn't it?" he said, his voice smooth, as if we had just shared some small victory. I didn't know what to think anymore. I didn't know where this was leading, or how deep I was already in. All I knew was that, in that moment, I felt more alive than I had in a long time. The evening James confronted me, I felt like I was suffocating. His words cut through the air with the precision of a knife, and every time he spoke, my heart dropped further. "I heard your conversation," he said, his voice icy. "I know exactly what you've been doing." I stood frozen, 1,000 excuses racing through my mind, but none of them made it past my lips. I could see it in his eyes. The disbelief, the hurt, but also something darker, something calculating. He wasn't angry, at least not in the way I expected. He wasn't yelling or crying. He was cold, and that scared me more than anything else. "James, He raised his hand, stopping me mid-sentence. "Don't. I don't need your excuses. I don't need you to tell me you made a mistake. I know exactly what happened." My heart pounded in my chest as I realized the full extent of the situation. This wasn't just about the affair. This was about James, my husband, the man who had always been so steady, so reliable, suddenly becoming someone I didn't recognize. He stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "I don't care about your reasons, Anna. What I care about now is what happens next." I opened my mouth to speak again, but the words felt hollow. I had no defense. I had destroyed everything we'd built, everything he had trusted me with. And now, there was no way to take it back. James didn't shout, didn't break down. Instead, he did something I hadn't expected. He turned around, walked toward the door, and grabbed his jacket. "I'm going to work," he said, his voice calm, detached. "I'll be back later. You'll get your things, and I'll be gone by the time you get back." His words were final, like a sentence I couldn't escape from. He wasn't demanding an explanation. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was simply done. "James, please, don't do this," I whispered, my voice cracking. He didn't respond. He didn't even look at me. He just left. That was it. The moment I realized my marriage was truly over. The next few days felt like a slow motion car crash. I tried to reach out to James, but he ignored every call, every text. It was like I had become a stranger to him. His absence hung over the house like a heavy fog, and I couldn't escape the crushing weight of my own guilt. I called Michael, desperate for some kind of support, but even he had started pulling away. His texts became less frequent, and when I did speak to him, there was a noticeable distance in his tone. He wasn't the same person who had filled me with excitement and passion. Now, he sounded almost bored. That's when I realized I wasn't just losing James. I was losing everything. The man who I thought would give me the attention and validation I'd been craving was already slipping away. And as for James, he wasn't responding to any of my attempts at reconciliation. Days passed, and I spent most of them in a haze, my thoughts swirling around the aftermath of what I had done. The guilt was suffocating, but it was also accompanied by an uncomfortable realization. James wasn't reacting the way I thought he would. He wasn't angry. He wasn't crying. He was quiet. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't know how much time had passed, but it felt like hours before I heard the sound of the front door opening. James had returned. I had been pacing the living room, hoping for some sign, some crack in his resolve. But when he walked in, his expression was still cold, still composed. Without a word, he walked past me, his movements deliberate and calm. He didn't even glance in my direction. "James, please, we need to talk," I said, almost pleading. He stopped at the kitchen table, pulled out a chair, and sat down slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. His hands rested on the table, his fingers tapping lightly against the wood. "You want to talk?" he asked, his voice flat. "I don't think there's much left to say, Anna." I felt a lump form in my throat. "I'm sorry. I made a huge mistake. But please, I love you. I need you to understand. He cut me off, raising his hand again. You don't get to apologize. Not anymore. He leaned forward slightly, and for the first time in days, I saw a flicker of emotion in his eyes. But it wasn't what I expected. It was something darker. Something colder. You think this is about you? You think I'm upset because you slept with him? No. I'm upset because you thought you could play me. Because you thought I wouldn't know, or that I wouldn't care. But I do, and now, I'm gonna make sure you understand just how much. The chill in his voice made my blood run cold. This wasn't the man I had married. This wasn't the man I had built my life with. This was someone else. Someone who had been hurt so deeply, he had become someone I couldn't even recognize. James leaned back in his chair, his expression still unreadable. You want to fix things. You want to beg for my forgiveness. Fine, but you won't get it that easily. His words hit me like a slap. What do you mean? I whispered, my voice shaking. I mean, he said slowly, his eyes locking onto mine, I'm gonna make you pay. Not right now? Not yet. But when the time comes, you'll wish you hadn't made this mistake. You'll wish you'd never crossed me. I didn't understand. I thought he would be the one who broke down, who begged for the family to stay intact, but instead he was methodical, cold, almost like he was waiting for something. James, please. I whispered again, but my voice was too weak, too broken. He stood up, his movements slow and deliberate. You'll get what you deserve. I'll make sure of that. And with that, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone in the silence. I sat there, my heart pounding, my body trembling. This was far worse than I had ever imagined. I had expected anger. I had expected heartbreak. But I had never expected this, the quiet, calculated coldness in his actions. James wasn't just hurting. He was planning something. And that terrified me more than anything. It was the silence that killed me the most. For the next few days, James didn't say a word. He didn't try to work things out, didn't give me a chance to apologize. He was distant, colder than I had ever known him to be. I could feel the weight of his anger. It was like a storm waiting to break. But he didn't shout. He didn't lash out. He was patient. Too patient. I kept hoping that maybe he'd come back, maybe he'd let me make things right. But with each passing day, I felt more isolated. Every attempt I made to talk to him was met with silence or a sharp, dismissive reply. The worst part was that it wasn't just me feeling the effects of his coldness. It was everything around me. The house, once filled with laughter and the bustle of family life, felt like a ghost town. I had no idea what James was planning, but I knew deep down that this wasn't going to end like I thought. Then, everything changed one morning when I woke up to a call from my parents. It was my mother, her voice trembling with confusion and concern. Anna, honey, we just got a call from James's parents, she said, her voice thick with worry. They said that James is asking for a divorce. That you've been cheating on him, and he's had enough. What's going on? I felt the ground shift beneath me. My mind was spinning. But one thing was clear, James had gone straight to my parents. He'd told them everything. And in the most public way possible. He told them about Michael, didn't he? I asked, the words feeling like a punch to my gut. Anna, he didn't just tell us. He's telling everyone. Your friends, your coworkers, even people at your job. We're getting calls from all sides. He said you've betrayed him, that you've been unfaithful for months. I felt a rush of shame flood over me. How could he do this? Why was he airing our dirty laundry to everyone, including my own family? I could hear my mom's voice cracking as she tried to hold it together, but the damage was already done. The whole world was about to know. Then, I heard something else. He also mentioned he's taking full control of the house, that you need to leave. He's planning on selling it. My stomach dropped. James was ruthless. I never thought he would take it this far. Not in front of my parents, not in such a cold, calculated way. He wasn't just angry, he was destroying everything I had built. Everything we had. He's got everything lined up already. My mother continued. He's called a lawyer. He's making sure everything is in place. Anna, I don't know what to tell you. I couldn't respond. I was frozen, staring at the wall, my hands shaking. I had no idea what to do next. James had already made his move. He had planned this revenge with chilling precision, leaving nothing to chance. When I hung up the phone, I felt like I was drowning. I couldn't even focus enough to think about how to get through the day. The shame, the embarrassment. It was too much to bear. The betrayal wasn't just private anymore. It was public, and James wasn't stopping there. The next morning, I arrived at work and was met with whispers. As soon as I walked in, I could feel the eyes on me. Colleagues who used to smile and greet me now avoided eye contact. My stomach twisted. I went to my desk, hoping to get some work done, but then my phone buzzed. It was a text from my boss. "Can you come to my office, please?" My heart raced. I knew what this was about. I didn't even need to guess. When I walked into the office, my boss, a man I had worked with for years, sat behind his desk, his expression stern. "Anna," he started, "James has made some serious accusations. He's told us that you've been unfaithful, that you've been having an affair with a colleague." I felt my blood run cold. James had contacted my workplace. He had gone so far as to reach out to everyone who mattered to make sure I was publicly shamed. My reputation, everything I had worked for, was crumbling in front of me. "Listen, I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. How could I explain? How could I defend myself when the man I loved had already done the damage for me?" He sighed and shook his head. "I'm not gonna fire you, but this isn't a good look for you, Anna. You know that. This kind of thing, it spreads quickly. It affects the whole office. I'm just giving you a heads up. You may want to think about how you want to handle this." His words stung more than I expected. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about how everyone around me, my family, my friends, my colleagues, was now seeing me through a completely different lens. The woman who had it all together was now the woman who couldn't keep her own marriage intact. That afternoon, I received another call, this time from the real estate agent James had hired. "Hi, Anna. I just wanted to confirm your move, out date. James told me you're leaving the house." I felt my breath catch in my throat. "Wait, what?" "The house is being sold," she repeated. "James said you're no longer welcome there, and he wants everything sorted as soon as possible." I couldn't believe it. James had already made arrangements. He was selling our home, the place where we had raised our children, the place I had built my life. It was gone. All of it. Just like that. By the time I got home that evening, the weight of everything hit me all at once. James had done everything with methodical precision. He hadn't just left me. He had ripped everything from me. My family, my home, my reputation, and he had done it without so much as a second thought. He wasn't just hurting. He was destroying. I stood in the middle of the house, staring at the empty spaces that were once filled with warmth and memories. The furniture was already packed up. The house felt like a shell of what it used to be. I had no idea where I would go. But in that moment, it didn't matter. James had taken everything, and I was left with nothing. James's revenge wasn't about yelling or anger. It was about control. It was about taking everything that mattered to me and leaving me to pick up the pieces. I had crossed a line and, now, I was paying the price. And all I could do was watch as my life, the life I had built, crumbled away in front of me.